I am so excited about this project, you guys. It's something that I've kind of had waiting in the wings just for the right moment, and I think that Thanksgiving is going to be just the perfect occasion to display this project. And my question of the day is, if you do this, please let me know, and let me know about any of your experiences you have in putting this together, because I think there's probably better and easier ways, some little tips and tricks that you guys would know about that I don't. I'm not real crafty, but I couldn't resist this one. So this is just a beautiful project, I think. Decoupaged pumpkins with cuttings from your garden. In this case, they have used fern and some angel vine or muhlenbeckia and all different kinds of just foliage in general. And this comes, and we will put a link, this comes out of this terrain book that I like so much. And for really seasonal projects, it's probably my go-to. So I've got my book here. And what else you will need for this project really is minimal. You don't need much. It's a perfect way to use those pumpkins that you've got out in your landscape that have escaped damage from the squirrels or have escaped rotting out from a too wet fall, because pretty soon a lot of us are going to be discarding them before we put out our holiday decor. So I just went outside and got lots of the pumpkins that I already had on display, and I decoupaged them. So what do you have to have on hand? Well, obviously you have to have pumpkins. To me, I think I really wanted to accentuate this kind of linen bone color this year, and so I selected my pumpkins and my gourds accordingly. But certainly you could use the bright orange ones. You could use really any type of pumpkin or gourd, but I think it probably would have to have a rather smooth finish, because it would be pretty difficult, I think, to get this decoupage effect if you have one of those knucklehead pumpkins or one that had a lot more texture to the outside. Stuart is nodding his head. So what else do you have to have? You have to have your pumpkins. You have to have your cuttings. Now this I found as I was experimenting with it, I found this to be pretty important, or at least aesthetically important to me. I found, and even in the instructions in the terrain book, it says to use delicate cuttings and delicate trimmings from your gardens and your shrubs, because they just tend to have a much better profile, I think, than say large leaves or something of that effect. They have a more almost like a Japanese quality, and I think for me it's a lot more appealing. So what I did is I just took 2 cutting boards, and then whatever I thought I might want to use, I flattened, for the most part, I flattened them first to make it a little bit easier to get the adhesive on the back. So I flattened some, though that's not absolutely necessary. Stuart said he just loved this one, so at some point I'll definitely have to use this one on one of my pumpkins. This is a Nandina leaf, one of my Obsession Nandina leaves. A lot of these other ones, it's especially beautiful, I think, to use vining things. And this is my Boston ivy. Now you don't want to probably wait too much longer, because as I learned this week, a lot of the vines that I clipped off of different areas of my garden, they're starting to drop their leaves. So you want to do it before they drop their leaves, so that you get that sinewy, really ethereal, delicate look while they're still on the branch. So I've got different things here. I did some large leaves. I did this, I think would be really pretty. Let me see if I can find it here. This got a little squish. I'd have to do some fresh cuttings, but I really think the Soft Caress Mahonia would be beautiful, because it's got that really delicate profile with lots of gaps and negative space in between them. But what I like most, I think, are just the little pieces of vine. So here's some of that muhlenbeckia, which is really, really dear. You can kind of see what it looks like there. So I just took some clippings and I've just kind of squished them in between one cutting board and a rather heavy cutting board on top. So you need all of your clippings, and then you need some spray adhesive. Now happily, I just happen to have this out in my garage, but it wouldn't cost you much to get this at your home improvement store. And the directions, now here's where I diverged a little bit from the real directions. They called for Mod Podge. And on this one, I put a layer, after I adhered all of my foliage, I gave it a coating of Mod Podge. I found that it really worked a lot better, was easier, and I think more effective to use just a spray enamel. I found that when I would use a brush to put that Mod Podge on, it would kind of disrupt some of the little leaflets and some of the more delicate components, and I didn't like that. Another thing that I noticed over time is some of the foliage would separate from the pumpkins themselves. But actually, I decided I didn't mind that because it gave it then this 3D quality, which I think will be beautiful on my table. And then you could stack them, you could just line them up all in a row. You could really display them in any way you wanted. And I'll show you on my own Thanksgiving table here this next week how I'm going to style them. So really all you have to have are pumpkins, clippings, spray adhesive, and some clear gloss enamel. You really don't even need the book. And then just to make it a little bit easier, because it can start getting gooey when you work with it, I've got a pair of gloves. Again, not absolutely necessary, but it did make the job a little bit easier. And then I found, so I've got a really long piece, which might be a little bit difficult to work with, and some of it doesn't look quite its best. So I'm going to clip it off there. And then another thing that I found is if you've got something that has a little crux in it, then you can kind of kind of situate it right around the stem, and that gives you a point of reference, I think, for where you want to put and where you want to adhere your pretty little leaves. I don't think this is about perfection, you guys. I think, on the contrary, that's its charm, because if you look outside right now in your own garden, certainly there is not perfection. Everything is a little bit dried, folded over, brown at the edges. So this is why I put on gloves. Then I'm going to come down here and I am just going to kind of position it carefully. You do have to work rather quickly because this adhesive will start drying on you. You do have a little bit of leeway in moving the leaves around once you press them into place. And I have also found that the stem is almost impossible to really get it to adhere. And so I kind of just don't try. And what I have found is if they come off, and you see they stick to your fingers, then you can just kind of torture them into place. And, well, that one may not need to be there anyway. Now, if I had some kind of maybe a bone folder tool or something along those lines, I could be a lot more exacting, but I really don't want to be that exacting. And again, I don't mind if some of the edges kind of poke up a little bit, because that gives it kind of a 3D look. So I want it to have kind of a wind-blown quality. And this is, thank you, Stuart, this is where I have found that really less is more, because the fewer things you can see over here, that the more gaps there are between each leaf, the more delicate it looks. And you can also come back in here, and I probably should have some tweezers or something. But if you miss one on one side, then you can come back and individually put it on the other side. And again, even sometimes I think the tiniest ones are the ones that make all of the difference. See how delicate that is? Now this one might be kind of fun going around like that. Actually, I might like it better there. And then the other thing you can do, you guys, is you can come back in and selectively remove those that you don't like. Now you can see this one has not been flattened, and it's going to be a little bit more problematic to put on here, but I just cut it. So I know it's fresh. The other thing you can do, like right here, I've got a tiny, tiny little blemish, and you can kind of cover that up. So if I find that I've got a little too...
I like the overlap.
You like the overlap? Okay. But if you've got a little too much density, then you can go back and, like I say, strategically. Might also be helpful. I tried using like a paintbrush to kind of stipple these in place, but I found that was just more unwieldy than using my fingers. I just couldn't get the dexterity, and then I found that the paintbrush just kind of got sticky. Then I had little kind of hairy things. Now, like right here, I'm not going to worry about this too much, because when I do that spray enamel on there, some of these things that aren't quite flush, that will also help it adhere. So I kind of like the way this looks with just a little bit on one side. The other thing you can do, like on this one, you guys, is once I would get that into place, I can say, okay, I'm just going to remove that in its entirety, and it almost looks like these are just kind of floating. And I can put a little bit more. I'm sure those of you that are crafty would do a far superior job. But I just wrote a big newsletter on how perfection shouldn't be the enemy of the good. And if we're always striving for perfection, then we wouldn't try anything new. So, I kind of just like the way that looks. I might take this off. That just looked a little too heavy to me right there. Stuart likes them overlapped, and I like them not quite so thick. And then obviously, I can take little individual pieces. Ooh, that one might be pretty there. And it's one of those kind of projects that you know when you're finished, when you run out of time, because you could just keep playing with this and playing with it. And of course, you could also go around in the opposite direction, like around the equator of the pumpkin if you wanted to do that, versus cascading down the side. Okay, I'm going to do a little touch up here. in place. And then of course, if your pumpkins are really dirty, you are probably going to want to wash them, wipe them down beforehand. Mine were already kind of clean, so you get these little sticky pieces on your fingers. I got some scissors out to use kind of as a stipple. The other thing is, these will be on a very romantic, low-lit dining room table. So candlelight will also diffuse any of the imperfections. So there you go. I've got that looking pretty good. Pretty much the way I want. And for right now, I'm just going to do a little bit of a spritz of the enamel on it. To get it to adhere a little bit better, and then I'll come back and do the entire pumpkin a little bit later. And also make any adjustments to any of the leaves on there that I may or may not like. So I think that's going to be so pretty. I really like the way it looks. I love the ones that are a little bit more delicate. And you could do this. This would be maybe a fun project with some kids. But I love the way this looks, and this is also going to be my muse for my entire table setting. For my table linens, my china, everything will all be informed by what this little project has done for me. If you haven't signed up for my newsletter, go to lindavater.com and sign up. I put on there a really, really great deal and a beautiful tablecloth that I'm considering getting. Comes with matching napkins. And if you do sign up and you see it, let me know whether or not you think I should order it too, because I'm seriously considering it. So there you go. This is what you will need for this Thanksgiving project to make some really unique centerpieces that when you get finished can just be discarded. You don't have to wrap them back up, put them back into storage. And then on a final note, since it's all about gratitude right now, I do want to share with you guys some more things that I got in the mail this week, and give a shout out. Sherry Pollard in Gadsden, I could be mispronouncing that, Gadsden, Alabama, sent me some rose campion seeds, and I will definitely be scattering them. Look how she packaged them so sweetly with a picture there. These came from her garden, and she knew I loved it because it's silver and it's got that really deep, intense magenta pink. So thank you so much, Sherry. I appreciate it. I also got the sweetest note from Cheryl McClendon in Brentwood, Texas. She sent me a sweet card. And I also got a sweet card from Regina Moore. Regina is also in Georgia, so we've got lots of viewers in Georgia. So thank you so much, you guys. It really means a lot to me, and I think it's just such a personal touch when you get a handwritten note in the mail. So there you go. There is our project and our correspondence for this weekend. Well, if you have held on this long, here is your fashion epilogue for today. And I took great pains to make sure that my ensemble really communicated beautifully with the Boston Ivy, because it is at its peak now, just glorious. So let's see, my earrings, my pearl and gold earrings, or faux gold, came from Nordstrom Rack. My top is Gap. It's a sleeveless. I really like, here's a little tip for your wardrobe. I really like sleeveless collared blouses because I like to wear them under sweaters, and I don't feel so confined when they've got long sleeves. So this is a Gap sleeveless denim shirt. This sweater. I'm trying to think. I think I got it at Goodwill, but I could have also gotten it at my favorite little Free the Monkey store in Salida, Colorado. I can't remember. I got it in one of two places. My breeches are Old as the Hills. They are boot cut from the Gap, and I really love these boots, you guys. I did a promotion for them last year. These are called High C, H-I-S-E-A, High C boots. They're so comfortable and they're kind of funky. I like them, and if I can still find the link, I will definitely put the link below. So there you go. There's your fashion epilogue for today.